Welcome to Supply Chain Now, the voice of global supply chain. Supply Chain Now focuses on the best in the business for our worldwide audience, the people, the technologies, the best practices, and today's critical issues, the challenges and opportunities. Stay tuned to hear from those making global business happen right here on Supply Chain Now.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Scott Luton and Kelly Barner here with you on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's show. Now, in today's episode, we're going to be diving into the story of an industry leader, a trailblazer, really a mover and a shaker in supply chain and beyond. It's going to be quite an inspiring and informative session. Kelly, got a good one teed up, huh?
Yes, we do. I am really looking forward to this interview. We have an amazing person joining us today. I've done a little bit of homework, learning more about her. So I think everybody is going to enjoy this conversation.
I agree. Now, really quick, before we bring our guest in here today, great to have you on this episode, but these conversations are just some of the things that we're collaborating on together. Folks, if you love procurement, be sure to find Dial P for Procurement wherever you get your podcast from, because procurement is cool now, right, Kelly?
Yes, it is. And actually, tiny little change there. Not if you love procurement, because you love procurement. Yeah,
Nice.
we just benefited the doubt to everybody. We just assume everybody loves procurement around here.
That is right. And also, for any of our history nerds out there, raise your hand. I know I am one. You can check out This Week in Business History, where Kelly and I dive into great stories from our collective past. We drop a new episode each and every Tuesday. So, Kelly, with all of that said, now that we've done the heavy lifting, we've got a wonderful guest joining us here today. Can I go ahead and let the cat out of the bag and introduce her?
Please do.
All right, awesome. So I want to dive right in. I want to welcome in our featured guest. She brings more than 30 years of FedEx experience, industry experience to the role. Our guest has been recognized on the Crain's Cleveland 2020 Power 150 list and by Business Insider as one of the 17 most powerful women leading top logistics companies in 2021. She is certainly kicking a dent in the universe, as Steve Jobs would say. Join me in welcoming the president and CEO of FedEx Custom Critical Inc., Ramona Hood.
Thank you, Scott. It's my pleasure to be here.
Ramona, great to see you. We enjoyed our pre-show conversation, our orientation. I think we all got good marks for that from our friends here in the production suite, but so nice to see you. Now, Kelly, we were talking about where Ramona is today, which is, I think, just south of Akron, Ohio. Is that right, Ramona?
That's correct.
Okay. But where I want to start this conversation is one of our favorite questions, which is, where did you grow up, Ramona? And give us a few anecdotes about your upbringing.
Absolutely. So, not far. I was born and raised in the Akron area. Went to school as well for both my undergrad as well as my executive MBA. And I'm a mother of two girls that I love to spend time with, travel with, and I'm best known to be a foodie. The best way to have a meeting with me is to do something over food.
All right. So I got to do a follow-up question there, Kelly. You know, we love talking about food here at Supply Chain Now.
Yeah, we're all in good company here.
That's right. So Ramona, you were describing some of your travels in the pre-show. What's one food dish, whether it's on your recent travels or if you want to share one of your favorite food dishes growing up?
Yeah, so this is a pretty special month for me. So I'm going to share a food dish just from growing up. So the month of April is my birthday month, and I celebrate it all month long. And Sunday, April 10th, it was my birthday. And so I have an uncle who will cook dinner for the birthday person. So I went hometown to fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, green beans, and that's like one of my favorite go-to comfort foods.
I agree. Now, big follow-up question here, because we've got a big disagreement, round around disagreement here in the Luton household. Do you put hot sauce, our favorite's Tabasco, on mac and cheese, or do you eat it with no hot sauce?
So I only put the hot sauce on my chicken. I do not put it on my macaroni and cheese.
Okay. Only the heavy hitting questions around here at Supply Chain Now. Kelly, same question to you. On the mac and cheese, hot sauce or no hot sauce?
So, yes on the mac and cheese, but I have to tell you the truth, I'd be yes on the green beans, yes on the chicken. Hot sauce just generally goes on everything. That's sort of my
I'm with
philosophy.
you. I am with you.
I
All
like
right.
the
So,
way you guys eat.
well, so next time we're going to do this in person and we're going to do it proper over a nice plate of food. I'd love to meet your uncle. It sounds like he's quite a cook.
He is
Um,
actually, he cooks every Sunday for us.
oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, one final follow-up question before I pass the baton to my dear friend Kelly Barner. Sports, music, anything else that really factored in to your upbringing that when you look back really stands out as a big part of your journey?
Yeah, so probably a couple things when I think about it beyond the food side of things. Certainly living in the Akron, Cleveland area, there are some teams that are go-to and favorites. Being born and raised in Akron, although I'm a little bit older, just a little bit, than LeBron, the Cavs are one that it was great to see a championship happen. Cleveland Browns, gotta love them if you're local to the area. So sports always big. As I said, Sunday is a family gathering, and so very common to watch a football game on the TV as we're eating dinner as well.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And um, we're all kind of pulling for the Browns to get over the hump. And I think they made the playoffs last year, which is a great step forward. I'm a big Clemson fan, Ramona. And back in the day in the 80s, of course, Michael Dean Perry, the Fridge's younger brother, who was nicknamed the Icebox, was on the defensive line for the Browns. Kevin Mack, another Clemson football player, would steamroll any linebacker trying to tackle him. Reggie Langerhorns, of course, Bernie Kosar, some great teams back in the 80s. We hope that they get over the hump and get in the Super Bowl maybe the next year or two. How about that, Ramona?
Scott, I'm impressed one with your history and your knowledge of the Browns, even though it's the connection of Clemson. And I'm with you. I'm looking for us to really build a team that can sustain and get a championship for us.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, Kelly, gosh, I'd love to spend just an hour talking about food and sports and kind of the Cleveland, Akron area with Ramona, but we've got to get into the heavy lifting, right?
Yes, we do. And Ramona, Scott had mentioned when you first joined us that you lead FedEx's custom critical division. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that part of FedEx does?
Absolutely. So FedEx Custom Critical, our organization, it's a leading North American transportation provider in the business to business space. And so we offer a range of transportation capabilities. The portfolio itself of services are everything from exclusive transportation where it needs to be expedited. We have temperature control solutions as well as other logistical solutions. And so we operate in a couple different industries. A few of those are healthcare. COVID-19, you think about the vaccine when we had the EAU approval. That was a FedEx custom critical truck picking up the first vaccine. We support government initiatives, and that is a sector that we do quite a bit of business with. And then consumer goods. Those are three industries that we play in fairly well.
And obviously, critical work, especially anything that you've done to support distribution of the vaccine. But more recently, your team has had some involvement, as many other supply chain players have, around sending support to Ukraine. So, to the extent that you're willing and able to talk publicly about that, what has your team's role been there?
Yeah, definitely. First, I would like to just share that, we're deeply disturbed by what's happening in Ukraine. And our thoughts and solitary are with the people affected by the ongoing violence. And so it's a place where we have team members that work and live. And so our top priority is the safety of those team members and their family. But we are providing some support. We're doing both financial assistance to them and the affected communities as well.
Mm.
Now, I know that
Um,
at FedEx, oh, did you want to go ahead, Scott?
well, I just wanted to echo Ramona's sentiments there. It's the atrocities going on, blatant and outright aggression. It's heartbreaking. And I really admire uh, companies from the private sector that have found a way to, use their wherewithal and their supply chains, their resources, even their people to do what they can to really serve those in need in Ukraine and Poland and the whole region. So, Ramona, big thanks to what FedEx is doing along those lines. We certainly hope cooler heads prevail and we get a ceasefire so we can get to work figuring out a better solution there and putting an end to all the suffering. So, sorry, Kelly.
No, of course not. So, I mean, and really, Scott, that does provide us with a perfect transition to the next thing that we were going to ask Ramona about, because what we're seeing evidenced in your work with the vaccine, evidenced in your work to support the people in Ukraine, is proof of the company culture that you've built up. And as the leader of this organization, can you talk a little bit about the importance of culture to you, but also the work that you have to do on a daily basis to build that culture, make sure everyone understands and internalizes it so that we can, in fact, see this external evidence of the good work that you're doing internally?
Yeah, Kelly, that's a big question in itself. Culture is so critical to an organization. It really reflects who you are. It aligns us to what's important. It makes us resilient and it empowers us to deliver great results. So it's bigger than one team member, and it requires each of us to kind of make a choice how we choose to show up and demonstrate it on a daily basis. And so, as a leader, I and we all need to kind of understand that assignment that we choose to take by leading others in our organization. But as I think about culture and some examples just over the last couple years, the first thing I think about is those events that took place in 2020 that really allowed us to kind of lean into who we are and what's important during a time of so much uncertainty because of the pandemic that hit us in the U.S. in March of 2020. And as I think about the year, and those challenges and uncertainty, and then to find us at a place at the end of the calendar year where we're moving the first COVID vaccine. I remember the team and our highs and our lows throughout that. And it was really because we knew what our purpose was and the impact we were going to have on the world by being a part of the delivery of the vaccine. And now, we fast forward into 2022, and we're learning now how to kind of take the flexibility of what we've done with working from home and how to reframe it so that we can create this flexible work environment. And so when you think about culture, our goal is to continue to have this strong culture where our values are brought to life, no matter where the team members are, physically or digitally. If we sit or interact, we want to make sure that as we work in our next normal, that we bring that same culture to us, regardless of the physical or digital environment we may be in.
Well, and it's interesting you bring up the end of 2020 because I can remember watching on the news. I mean, these were glory days for supply chain professionals, right? Where they would send in news crews as the first shipments of vaccine were going out. And I know at least one of the ones that I watched live on television was in a FedEx facility. And you feel such a sense of pride because we know as people working in industry that the physical movements and the systems that coordinated it all were exactly the same things that had always been in place. But having the opportunity to step up and play such a critical role in the response to the pandemic, it really was a moment of pride. And I have to think for you as a leader, Ramona, to have your team out there making such a difference, that must have been incredibly rewarding for you and for them, and really an opportunity to sort of celebrate achievements despite all the challenges we were facing.
Absolutely, and I think you hit it on the head. To be able to demonstrate and be on a platform to share what we do, and that was our tagline. This is what we do. It was just being done in an environment now that it was highlighted that others recognize the value that we have in supply chain, and more importantly, to the health of people across the world.
Mm. I'll tell you, the noble mission from Ukraine to the pandemic. You mentioned finding your purpose, which I tell you that's got to be the silver lining in any bad day, bad time is finding who you are, finding out why does this matter, what we do. That purpose is so fulfilling and rewarding. And I also love your how you the context you're sharing is through the team, through the team, what they're experiencing, and I love that mantra you mentioned. This is what we do. But I want to talk about Ramona Hood for just a second before we go a little more broad. A little more broad. In 2020, Ramona, you became the first Black CEO in FedEx history. Now, I mentioned that you were a trailblazer on the front end, and that's just part of what makes you, the pioneer. Two-part question. For you and your journey, tell us what that means to you. And then secondly, for any of our listeners that want to do the same thing, maybe in a different vein, they want to be, the first to step through other doors or windows of opportunity or break through them. What would your advice be?
Yeah, so Scott, in the first part of it, what it meant for me, certainly this was a career goal and aspiration, but where it really hit internally was once I accepted the role. I called my girls, and we're in this together. So all of the travel, all of the different work assignments that I've had, it's been a partnership with my two daughters. So they knew the opportunity had presented itself. And I remember being in my office, signing the acceptance letter. And I called my daughters and I said, it's official. I've accepted the role of president and CEO of FedEx Custom Critical. And my older daughter on that call said to me, Mom, did you just break the glass ceiling? And I have to
Mm,
tell you, Scott, it was so emotional because you don't exactly know what your kids understand as you're going down a pathway. But certainly they were well aware of the impact this role would have not only on me and them, but really an opportunity to create a platform to talk about those possibilities. So it means the world to me, not being the first, but really being able to make sure that there's many that come after me as I
mm.
continue my journey as well. And so as I think
Hey,
about,
Ramona, if
yes,
can I butt in just for a quick second? Just for a quick second,
absolutely.
Kelly. We were talking pre-show um, about our kids, right? All three of us were kind of sharing, and these our kids, as Ramona just eloquently described, they are so perceptive. They pick up on everything, right? Those bad days that we just alluded to, they knew that. They know the challenges. They experience them. They know the days away from home. They know the leadership challenges that go with upper all roles, but especially senior levels of leadership. And what a special moment, Ramona, that you just described when you and your two daughters, and that question you got from one of your daughters, Kelly. uh, as a fellow parent, mother, leader, how does that resonate with you?
Well, first of all, I'm trying not to mess up my makeup. I think that's beautiful, Ramona. I also have three kids, but my oldest is a daughter. And so as a mom, right, we want to make sure that yes, we're breaking ceilings and yes, we're looking out for those who will come behind us, but our daughters are in that pack. Right.
Mm,
So I think that's incredibly inspiring. I love the opportunity that you had to get them on the phone so quickly to be a part of that moment, even if they weren't physically in the room as you signed the letter. So I'm thrilled that you're willing to share that with everybody.
mm. Thank you. Absolutely, Ramona. And we talked about, kicking a big old dent in the universe. That's exactly what Ramona Hood did here and continues to do. But the second part of that question, because I know that you're most passionate based on what you just shared a second ago, to make sure that there's an army that follows you. What advice would you give to any of our listeners that want to do the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. I think that's the critical and most important part of it is that there are others that have the opportunity to follow. And for me, it's about being intentional with your career. And I have found three things to be helpful for me get to this point and continue to grow as a leader as well. And the first one is being comfortable with sharing what your aspirations are. So truly understanding what excites you, kind of getting to that purpose, your individual purpose, but really sharing that with others. Second, I talk about the importance of having work, and I call it a board of directors for my own growth, and that includes coaches who are people who are helping me grow in specific skills and experiences, mentors, those individuals that have been there, done that, and they can give me guidance and wisdom. And probably the most important is sponsors, and those are people that have the power and the authority that you don't have, but they're the people that are going to advocate for you. They're going to bring you into rooms that maybe you wouldn't by yourself get that invitation. And so I just think it's important to really build that network. And the last piece of advice I'd share, Scott, is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And that means continuing to learn, continuing to take a risk assignments, being okay with failure. And that's really important so that you continue to grow and learn as well. So those are kind of the three areas of advice that I would give anyone as they're thinking about their dreams and their goals and how to kind of navigate to get to it.
So, Kelly, very practical, been there, done that advice that I'm sure our listeners will appreciate and hopefully act on. What was your favorite piece there, Kelly?
Well, I'm going to cheat because I did reading. So, sort of backing up what you shared, I love the fact that you raised your hand, right? You saw opportunities very early on to build your career and grow within FedEx. You didn't just sit and even work hard, which is hard, right? You raised your hand for opportunities. You indicated that you were open to the next step. You applied for positions, which is scary, right? Because not only do you have to maintain a solid record of very hard work and high performance, you do have to kind of put it out there that you're interested in what's coming next. And I think it's easy to overlook how important that is to both be doing a good job and keeping an eye on where your career is headed next. So I think it's practical advice. I think it's deceptively hard to follow, which really makes the place that you've realized at this point in your career all that more impressive because you clearly stuck to your vision.
Ramona?
Yes, Scott.
Would you?
You know, the way Kelly summarizes it is spot on, and I think you know that the key is being willing to raise your hand, being willing to realize beyond your results and the competency you have in doing the job, the ability to share in a way that isn't boastful, but certainly allows people to know what your capabilities are.
Both of y'all have me ready to run through this wall behind me. I think it's such, because it's not lip service. This is part of this is what both of you, and certainly Ramona, you've been doing, and to what has gotten you here. And I really appreciate that, and appreciate you sharing your perspective and those very special family moments. I want to shift gears a little bit. As important as real leadership is in this world we live in right now, maybe more important than ever before. Hard to say that, but there's so much from a sheer global business, global supply chain standpoint. There's so much going on. There are lots of silver linings, right? I think industry's learned a ton that's going to make the global supply chain much stronger. I'm not going to use the R word, resilient. It's going to be better for consumers. It's going to be better for employees. It's going to be better for shareholders, the environment. We're learning a ton in these last couple of years. But what's one thing, Ramona, when you look at and survey global business, global supply chain, what's one thing that you may be tracking more than others right now?
Yeah, Scott. So to your point, there is so much out there right now. If you and I and others went to kind of do a search on the trends in the global supply chain, quickly within 3 seconds, we'd find over a dozen trends, and a few of them out there are related to the flows in key markets and some of the challenges there, production shortage, technology enablement, how that's being used as an opportunity, and then the workforce and labor constraints. So there's not one trend by itself that I'm kind of focused on, but it's really around the strategy that helps with several of those trends. And I'm a believer that regardless of those trends, the strategy to either mitigate the challenge or maybe seize the opportunity, it's going to be focused on kind of the organizational resilience. And you use the word resilience, and I think maybe the word gets overused sometimes, but we can't forget what we saw in 2020 and where we're at in 2022. And I do think there's an importance of kind of cultivating resilience from the standpoint of our ability to anticipate the speed in which we react, and then the planning against the unexpected and the uncertain, because we'll continue to have trends and challenges, and there will be elements of uncertainty that comes into play. But if we can develop that mental model around the resilience for the organization, I think our ability to deal with those trends will be more effective.
Well said. Well said, Kelly. I'd love to get your response to that here in just a second. But first, Ramona mentioned that mantra. This is what we do early on when she was talking about the noble missions that they've been a part of. But I would also add another mantra that at least is echoing in my ears is that of so what? When consumers or employers are asking for certain things, especially in these recent years, any obstacles that prevented them from getting what they want look so much different after the last couple of years. And so we can't do that. Why? So what? Let's do it. I mean, that's what I think leading organizations and leadership that are really, we talked about the value, Ramona, pre-show about getting out there, sitting down with the customers, really hearing from them. It sounds like you do the same thing with your team members, which are just as valuable. How can we make sure the journey for them and all stakeholders is as positive and successful as possible. And I appreciate your focus around strategies to do just that. Kelly, how would you respond to some of those things that Ramona mentioned there?
Well, I think what I've heard, and from my perspective, there are sort of two types of leaders or executives coming out of all this, right? There are the people that sort of clung to, no, tactically, this is the way we do things. We have to trust our systems. And then there are people that had a degree of that. But as Ramona, you said, you go back to the strategies, right? Because strategies flex in a way that tactics and operational things sometimes don't. And I think when the really hard part is not letting the tactical details go, but keeping your eye on proven strategies and finding a way for them to meet in the middle at scale. We've all become experts in supply chain over the last 2 years. First, there was, where is my toilet paper? Then there was, why can't I find my brand of cereal? And then we moved on to, where are my Christmas packages? So now everybody has had a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. But as Scott and I know, and certainly you know as well from years of working in this industry, it's an incredibly complicated place to work. And at an organization as large and leading as FedEx, your strategies are big, your tactical details are really complicated. And I think for you to be able to pull that all together over the last 2 years, it really is incredible.
Hmm.
Thanks,
So,
Kelly.
Ramona,
One of the things
what?
that you mentioned that I was just going to touch on is the complexity of supply chain. And, I believe everyone has a certain talent and a superpower, if you will. And mine personally is really looking at things that are complex, that are big, and really simplifying it through strategies that allow us to execute on it as well. So I agree with what you said there as well.
Simplification. Blessed are those that can make things simple. I've long believed
Absolutely.
that, and gosh, we need a lot of that here these days. Um, okay, so Ramona, I feel like every once in a while we get a master class, and been there, done that leadership, and we're going to have to get some more time with you later this year. There's so much to ask you about, so little time. But as we start to kind of come around that final curve and head down the home stretch, I want to ask you about something. I also did a little stalking, not stalking. We call it due diligence, getting ready for interviews, right, Kelly? Um, so something you shared on social a month or so ago, maybe a couple months ago, that when it comes to real leadership and advocacy, quote, are thousands of small nudges. Together, we can move mountains, end quote. I just love that. And as I told you pre-show, I'm going to absolutely steal it from you and use it. I will work out some kind of commission package or licensing package maybe, but it's really so powerful because I think, I don't know about y'all, but the last couple of years, it's had me focus more in and try to appreciate those baby steps, and the build up of those baby steps, those small nudges as you speak to. But elaborate on what you meant there, because I probably took it out of context, perhaps. I'm bad about that sometimes. And what other advice would you package along with it if folks really wanted to fine tune their ability to lead in a very meaningful, impactful way?
Well, Scott, first, my daughters would call that creeping if you're on someone's social pages, just looking at what they do. I've been called a creeper myself from my kids for doing that. Uh, but I think the quote you're referring to was a post that I had on LinkedIn for American Heart Association. And so, to me, advocacy is so important. And I think realizing that all of us can do it. And Peter, there's a responsibility that I believe you have to advocate on the behalf of others. But really, anyone has the ability of making an impact. No matter how big or how small that is. And I think once we realize that we all have a part to play, and that's how you get those small incremental progressions to take place. And so, raising two daughters, I try to instill in them as well that they can make a change. Their actions, their voices are all meaningful, and with the intention of leading in a good way and making an impact, we all can do that. And together, collectively, it's where we start to kind of move the mountain of it.
Mm. All right. Beautiful. I love, we could talk leadership for days on end. Kelly, really quick, your response. Then I know that you've got just one or two more questions for Ramona.
I do. So I love the empowerment message of that, Ramona, because you're not saying anybody VP and above can move the mountain, right? Anybody director and above can move the mountain, right? You really do need every single pair of hands. And so that's an incredibly empowering message. Hopefully people at all levels of all organizations have had an opportunity to see their impact over the last couple of years. But before we do run out of time, what I would love to know from you is what are a couple of things, either Eureka moments or things that really changed your thinking? What were a couple of your big learnings over the last couple of years?
Well, I'll have to go back to 2020. And so, I moved in my role in January, and I was pretty methodical with this plan of what, my first 90 days were going to look like. And I did Ramona roundtables with team members, and I was planning to go out and make sales visits with customers, and then spend time with our independent contractors as well. But that plan had to shift and change when in March we saw in the US the states start to shut down. And so um, I think we're an organization that moves pretty quickly. But for me, I would say um, the situation of the team coming together, and in hours they were making decisions that had team members working from home while maintaining business continuity. And we were able to do it in just a few days. And we went through 4 stages, a 4 stage model, and was able to collect information to evaluate it. And we worked in that environment for over 24 months. And so watching the team do that and do it at the speed that they did, it really gave me the insight of how quickly we can move and get things done. So it's very hard now for the team to talk to me about projects and initiatives and scoping things that are going to take 6 months to a year, because I know we can move faster than that. We did it. And so just being agile with what's going on is really, for me, that was the Eureka moment during the past 2 years.
Mm.
Has
Love
any
that.
of that changed the way you think you'll lead going forward? Right. So clearly they're all busted. No more sandbagging, no more slow project timelines. But being a leader, it can be lonely at the top, right? Has anything that you've observed or experienced over the last couple of years affected the way you think you will function as a leader going forward?
Yeah, I think a lot of us over the last couple years increased our empathy and our grace, and so that is not something that I took on and it's gone away. I think I have great gratitude and grace for people and the circumstances and the situations that they're in, and I think I've built even a bigger muscle in that area just based on what we've seen over the last 2 years. And I think it makes me
No,
a better
that's
leader because of that also.
yeah.
Mm.
And Scott, just to turn the tables on you, I would personally
Mm.
suggest that you're an empathetic leader. Any thoughts about what people watching or listening in can take away from what Ramona just shared and apply to their own leadership situation?
Oh, you did turn the tables. All of us
Ramona
are
said the stakes have
human.
gone up, so that includes us.
All right. So all of us are human, and all of us have natural reactions to bad news and when things don't go right and all that stuff. But Ramona mentioned that muscle and really being intentional. And to become more empathetic, you really have to be intentional and deliberate about, working that muscle and exercising it so that it's there almost as a b- deep breath before you react in these challenging times, right? Because as Ramona mentioned, it puts her in a better position to be a better leader, which puts her team in a better position for her to be able to do more and make more nudges and take care of them and of course the customer. So being intentional and deliberate and not just empathy has become one of those words like resilience, right? And so, like some of these other words that have become very cliche in recent years, but folks want to see it in action. Deeds not words is a big mantra around here, and to be able to do that and almost do it again as a natural reaction, you got to practice it, right? And put it in action. And Ramona, clearly, you're a deeds not words leader. That's probably one of the things that's helped put you where you are, so you're in position to you know kick that dent in the universe and make sure a lot of folks will follow in your footsteps.
Yeah,
N-
absolutely. I every year I kind of think about my personal and professional goals, and there were two things in 2022 that I'm very conscious of, and I'm trying to make sure that I continue to do better and better. And one is I say uh, grace is good for the soul. And so just remembering to give others grace. And again, not knowing everyone's situation or what they may have gone through, but again, grace is good for the soul. So I try to remember that. And then the second one, and I think it's just again thinking about the last 2 years, is around leaning into joy and actually leaning into gratitude and taking a moment for joy. So I'm a very result oriented person. Like to set goals and then move to the next goal. And when I think about the last couple years of what's important, taking those moments to really lean in and have joy are just as important as hitting that milestone or accomplishment as well. So those are the two things that I'm focused on this year. So I continue to be a good person working on being a better person.
I love that, Kelly. So much good stuff in the last hour or so, but we've got one, I think, one final question for Ramona, right?
We do. Ramona, for anybody that has spent the last bit of time in our company, what is the best way for them to learn more about you, connect with you, or get in touch?
Absolutely. So, LinkedIn is the place to find me. I'm pretty active on it. So, Ramona Hood. You can follow me. I try to give Wednesday wisdom and a couple other things to keep it going, including during early parts of COVID. You'd see my black lab Bree. on there. And it doesn't bother me that she gets more followers than I do, but certainly that's one place to follow me. And then if there are customers who have a need for FedEx Custom Critical or need to know a little bit more about our services, FedExCustomCritical.com will provide them more insight to the services that we provide as well.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, Ramona Hood, I've really enjoyed, we set a high bar for what we thought this interview would be, and you have surpassed that and then some. We look forward to reconnecting with you again. There's so much here from your journey, your expertise, your story, how you view the world, and I really appreciate what you shared over the last hour. So thank you so much for your time.
Scott and Kelly, it's been a pleasure. I am so glad we had a chance to talk before this conversation, and I look forward to an opportunity of us having a future conversation, maybe at some point in person over food. But certainly this was a highlight of my day as well.
You bring the mac and cheese, we'll bring the hot sauce.
Right. That's right, Kelly. But thank you very much to Ramona Hood, President and CEO of FedEx Custom Critical. We'll see you again real soon.
Thank you.
All right, Kelly, there's a ton to unpack here, but for the sake of time, just what's one of your favorite things that Ramona shared here today?
Oh, that's easy. This is the very first interview ever that I've almost cried during. There's probably, there's no crying in baseball. There's also probably not crying in supply chain interviewing. But as a mom of a teenage daughter, her retelling that moment of signing her acceptance letter with her girls on the phone, I was like, okay, think about something slightly else for a minute. That was an incredibly touching and personal moment. I love the fact that she shared that with us.
Agreed. That was very special. We try to walk a good line, professional and personal. We try not to, prod folks to overshare it, but I'm so glad she shared. I could picture that in my mind. I can't wait to share that with my kids and Amanda later today. But on a lighter side, how cool and how much do you want to be a part of the Ramona roundtables? I can just see it. I can see the lessons learned. I can see, the practical side where they're getting stuff done, but then the exchange of the day and stories and anecdotes. And I don't know, but to ask Ramona maybe next time. I wonder if her uncle has ever made an appearance at those roundtables and kind of, brought the good stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll have to ask her later on. But big thanks for you joining me here today, Kelly Barner. How can folks connect with you?
Same as Ramona, very easy. Find me on LinkedIn. You can also check out Buyer's Meeting Point, Art of Procurement, and of course, dial P for procurement here on Supply Chain Now.
Awesome. Big thanks to Kelly Barner. Folks, listeners, hopefully you enjoy this conversation as much as Kelly and I both did. Ramona Hood, what a dynamo. We look forward to having her back, but her journey is an expertise and experience is so interesting and uplifting and inspiring, really. But if you take anything away, right, on behalf of our entire team here at Supply Chain Now, on behalf of Kelly Barner, Scott Luton signing off now, challenging you to be like Ramona Hood, do good, give forward, and be the change that's needed. And we'll see you next time right back here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for being a part of our Supply Chain Now community. Check out all of our programming at supplychainnow.com and make sure you subscribe to Supply Chain Now anywhere you listen to podcasts. And follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. See you next time on Supply Chain Now.